Hello, hello. As you all come in, please hit that heart button over there on Twitter, X. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It'll help my engagement. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I hear there's some juicy stuff. And we definitely are going to see what's going on. Make sure as you enter, all right. Hello, hello, hello. So as you enter, make sure you hit that heart on X. Y'all, we're getting ready to get into it. We're getting ready to get to today's testimony as the courts pretty much end around now 3. They leave. We're just going to go over the whole day. We shouldn't have that many interruptions. We'll go over everything. I hear there's some juicy stuff, and we're going to go over it and see what's going on. Ooh. So let me share my screen. And it looks like StreamYard has a new feature where the chat is going to come up across the screen. So you all send me some messages and things like that. I'd love to communicate with you, answer questions, so I don't have to try to pop them up on the screen. I surely appreciate it. All right, let's go. Let's see what's going on. It says before the jurors come in, here's the defense again, talking about that they oppose that David James testifying about the incident with Suge Knight. He's going to mention D-Rock. He's say he was a friend of Biggie Smalls. That's decades ago, and it's not relevant. Judge, seems you are previewing your cross. And so I don't know if he, I don't know. I just don't know what he did after that point right now. Let's go over here. Real quick. So let's see what they were debating. So I'm going to go over here to CNN. Let me read to you what's going on over here at CNN. It says lawyers debate what Cassie Ventura's mother can say on the stand. Prosecutors and defense attorneys are debating upcoming testimony from David James, who will continue to testify this morning. And apparently they're debating because he's going to mention some information in regards to Suge Knight that D-Rock told him, and we know that D-Rock is deceased. Regina Ventura is expected to take the stand later today. Prosecutors argue that Regina Ventura can testify that in December 2011, Sean Diddy Combs demanded that she pay him $20,000 for the money he spent on her daughter after he learned that she was romantically involved with Kid Cudi. Oh, this is new. The money demand came within days of Combs allegedly threatening Cassie Ventura and Kid Cudi and threatening to release sexually explicit videos of her. Regina Ventura took out a loan and wired the money to Combs. The money was wired back to her without explanation days later. The government has bank records to support this transaction. Y'all, was he trying to punk them? Because they were like, listen, you're not going to play no games with me. You're not going to do anything that you said that you're going to do. I really wish they would have snatched their daughter, but what? Prosecutors say the jury should hear this evidence they say speaks to the coercive control Combs held over Cassie. The defense objected to the testimony, saying it would be prejudicial to Combs, highlighting the economic disparity between him and the Ventura family. Defense attorney Mark Agnefield also noted Combs gave the money back. The judge said Agnefield could object to the testimony when it comes up during Regina's testimony later today, and he'll deal with it. The judge is like, whatever. Let's just we just gonna sit here and we're gonna worry about it. So it looks like looks like Diddy's sister is in court today. I've never seen his sister. His children and the mother who have been inside the court, they're not there yet. Okay. I've never seen his sister. So let's get into what's going on. Let's get into this testimony. I think that we'll just go back and forth between CNN and we'll go back and forth. All right. So David James comes back on the stand. And if we're not familiar, David James is the first personal assistant that is taking the stand. Now, he testified yesterday that he had 2 conversations with Cassie. One conversation, she was talking about, the lifestyle, and he told her that, hey, you should get out. And she was like, Puffy has my life, I have to, my career, my home, and everything that I do and I am right now, he controls it because he pays for everything. And then he said the second conversation that they had is that she was talking about her album. I guess she was excited about the album or whatever, but the album never did come out. And it looks like some of the jurors it took a while for some of the jurors to get there. Sorry about that. I don't even know where my phone is. Anyway. So the government, prosecutors, Slavic. What about physical violence between Mr. Combs and Cassie? Did you personally observe it? David James. No, I did not. Prosecution. Do you remember a blog post? David James. Yes. I was in LA when he came back from a club. What did Mr. Combs say? David James. That someone was lying on him, saying he hit Cassie at the club. He went through my browser history. No one had ever done that to me. Prosecution. Did Mr. Combs give you instructions about Cassie? David James. To bring her food at the London hotel, some Roscoe's. Prosecutors. What is Roscoe's? David James. Some delicious fried chicken in Los Angeles. Prosecution. What did you do for Mr. Combs in New York? David James. I'd bring him applesauce, Jell-O, and Fiji water. His toiletry bag with ointments just for men. We bought 40 items so he wouldn't call us later. I'd get a key like at the Trump International. I'm just trying to remember to heart it so I know that I've read it. David James. I'd set up the medicine bag in the personal LV bag. Now, Cassie has testified to this, and Don Richard has testified that Puffy keeps his drugs, the ketamine, the opiates, the prescription drugs, the ecstasy and all that other stuff in this brown LV bag. And if you go back to my video I did this morning, you will see the photos that they took of his hotel room after he was arrested back in September. And you see that LV bag sitting up there on the, looks like the bathroom. Prosecution, what was in it? David James, a Viagra, ecstasy, perks. Okay. Prosecution, how did you go about replenishing these supplies? David James, I'd use my personal credit card. Bad boy paid me back. Who paid you back? Usually bonds. Prosecution. That's disturbing. This right here, that's disturbing for me. That is real disturbing. Because if he got caught or he something happened, well, maybe because he wouldn't have been able to pay for drugs with his personal credit card, but those other items and things like that, I guess he would be able to do that. And Bonds, I think, was the security, right? Wasn't Bonds his security guard? Okay. Prosecution. Did Mr. Combs ever stay alone in a hotel? David James. Never. Usually Cassie, sometimes other women. Prosecution. Did he ask you for things during a stay? He texts me for an iPod or for food. Prosecution. Did anything strange ever happen? David James. Yes, in Miami. He asked for an iPod from his house on Star Island. I drove it to his hotel and knocked. No answer. I had the key. I set up the room. What did you see? Cassie on the bed. There was another person who sort of scurried away, and the shower was on. And the shower was on. I thought Mr. Combs was in there. Prosecution. How was she sleeping? David James. On her back. Objection. Sustained. Y'all give me one moment. I got to go. Give me one moment, y'all. Sorry about that. And my phone was ringing and it wasn't next to me. So I couldn't cut it off. All right. Where were we? David James. There was another person who sort of scurried away and the shower was on. I thought Mr. Combs was in there. How was she sleeping? On her back. Objection. Judge. Sustained. What about the other person? David James. He was about 5'8" with long hair and a large endowment. He scurried away. James. Mr. James. What? Mr. James. Did you ask anything? David James. I wasn't hired to ask about their personal affairs. So he is corroborating that he saw somebody in there in the bed with Cassie. Let's see. Well, he's testifying because I don't think that the prosecution asked Cassie, did any of the staff see her in there with the did the prosecution ask Cassie if anybody saw her in there with the people? I don't think they asked her that. Do you ever pick up drugs for Mr. Combs? Mr. James. Yes, Percocets at the pharmacy, sometimes in my name. Prosecution. Did you give him permission to use your name? David James. I don't recall that. Prosecution. Was there a drug dealer? David James. Yes, one side. So you have Cassie, you have Dawn, you have this person corroborating that there was drugs in the place and Mr. One Stop was the provider. And, on a different note, just the name One Stop. That's a great name for a drug dealer. One stop. You just come here and this is your one stop. He met with a lot of people. David Jamming. Yes, even former presidents. Prosecutions was one. Former President Obama. Don't throw Obama in this. Prosecution. What was your understanding would have happened if you hadn't done these things? Objection. Sustained. Prosecution. Did you ever take ecstasy? James. Yes. I was drinking Ciroc. I took ecstasy. I was Diddy's bopping. I was Diddy bopping. Prosecution. What do you mean? David James. I was vibing. Did you speak to Mr. Combs about it? David James. He was reviewing footage of the party. David James. We had a videographer who filmed the parties. He asked me, hey, Playboy, was that you dancing around at the party? I said, yes. He said, I'm going to keep the video in case I ever need it, meaning that I'd be embarrassed. So here's another thing here is an instance where he would film everything. And then when he saw you doing something possibly illegal or possibly something embarrassing, he'd let you know that he had this information and he'd keep it. Did anything ever go missing? David James. They said a bracelet was missing. Uncle Polly came to my hotel room and searched my belongings and those of my girlfriend at the time. Prosecution. Could you have said no? Agnophilia. Objection. And the judge says, move on. Prosecution. Did you ever had to take a lie detector test? Mr. James. Yes. Who was present? Just me and this gentleman. It was very intimidating. They put monitors on my head, my chest, and my hand. Could you refuse? Not to keep my job. So we have here that when things went missing, that they would first go and search all the employees, all the assistants, and all these other stuff. So it was an environment. So even if they misplaced something, you can kind of get the feeling that there was an environment of, if anything went missing, you were going to be the first person that I blame. Slavic. Did this happen again? David James. Yes. When Mr. Combs said a watch of his had been stolen. What was the result? The gentleman told me I seemed nervous. I said, sure I am. Once Capricorn Clark had to take a lie detector test to prove that she wasn't part of a heist of Mr. Jones Combs' jewelry. Now, Capricorn Clark used to be his number one girl as far as being his assistant. And I believe, if I told you all before, I believe I saw a documentary or something with her on there talking about how to become an assistant for Diddy and all this other stuff. And she was talking about all the stuff that she had to be able to do. So prosecution. Was there an incident at Mel's Diner with Suge Knight? David James. Yes. I drove the Silver Navigator to get cheeseburgers there. David James. D-Rock said, that's motherfucking Suge Knight. He went over and said, what's up? Suge did not recognize him, D-Rock said. I'm Biggie's boy. What happened next? David James. We noticed 4 black SUVs to different sides of the parking lot. I saw someone hand Suge Knight a gun. D-Rock says, we got to get out of here. We drove back to the house. That's the most curious thing about bravado to me. That's the most curious thing about bravado. Now, surely, and I'm just speaking on this. You know who Suge Knight is. You all roll in the same types of communities because you all work for different music executive. You know these music executives have some sort of affiliations. And you walk up on this man thinking that this man didn't have cover? Now, I'm not anybody that's going to be able to tell you or to explain to you that I have some kind of knowledge or anything about all this gang thing, but I have enough to know that if I see a particular member out, 9 times out of 10, they're going to have cover. That's one thing. And here's the second thing. You are in his city. He was born and raised in the West Coast. You coming from the East Coast, walking up to somebody with all of this bravado, all that New York bravado. Those boys out there in the West Coast don't play like that. It's all that good sunshine and good weather. Y'all don't know how to act in the heat because it's so fleeting. Oh, Lord, let's get into this. I saw someone hand Suge Knight a gun. D-Rock said, we got to get out of here. We drove back to the house. What did you find there? David James, Cassie was crying. Mr. Combs got in the vehicle. I saw 3 guns on his lap. So they're not telling all the information because they go back to the house and then he has guns. So did someone give him a call? I'm not getting all of that information, but let's continue. I'm thankful for what we have. David James, I felt calm because we had been in a silver vehicle, now a black one. They wouldn't see us coming. Prosecution. What did you find at Mel Diners? David James, Suge Knight had left. Mr. Combs said, drive around the block. Not no boys in the hood, miss. Freaky. Prosecution. What did you decide? David James, to leave the company. They offered me other positions, but I just wanted to leave. My life was at risk. Slavic, no further questions. The judge, Mr. Agnifino. So here we have the defense that's going to question him. You didn't tell all of this the first time. David James, they told me to stop, not to say anything that would incriminate me. Agnifino, look at the notes from your interview. Read it to yourself, then look up at me. David James, okay. How do you recognize Suge Knight? David James, I listened to hip hop. Agnifilo, were you drinking or smoking pot? No, sir. Agnifilo, your mind was clear? David James, as clear as it could be, working 20 hours a week at 4 a.m. Agnifilo, D-Rock opens the door. Suge Knight is a few cars over. David James, window up. David James, D-Rock says, I'm Biggie's boy, and then Suge recognizes him, gives him a dab. Agnifilo, what is a dab? David James, a handshake. Agnifilo, did you leave D-Rock at the diner? Why are you smiling? David James, because that's a crazy question. Why would I? Agnifilo, didn't you leave D-Rock at the diner? David James, that makes no sense. I'm not asking what makes sense. I'm asking, did you? David James, no. Agnifilo, you saw Cassie and Mr. Combs. David James, yes. Mr. Combs told me to drive. Agnifilo, you don't know where Mr. Combs got the guns, do you? Agnifilo, I didn't know we had guns until then. Agnifilo, have you ever been in a situation like that? David James, no. You didn't say I don't want to drive to Suge Knight with guns? He said no. Agnifilo, what exactly did you do before you got this job? David James, I was a door-to-door salesman, then personal assistant. Agnifilo, now you were going with guns to confront someone? David James, it was not ideal. Agnifilo, you knew how to get to Mel's Diner, right? I frequent there all the time, says David James. Agnifilo, you never seen guns before, right? David James, no. Agnifilo, this is a radical departure from your job description. Is that an understatement? David James, it's the understatement of the day so far. Agnifilo, do you have immunity? David James, ask my lawyer. I have some kind of offer agreement. Agnifilo, proffer. Agnifilo, you didn't tell anyone about this? David James, only my wife. Agnifilo, did you meet with the government this morning? David James, yes, briefly. about what might come up in cross. Did the Mel's Diner incident come up? David James, not that I recall. Agna Field, it's this morning. What did you talk about? David James, your style. Some laughter. Agna Field, I'm dying to ask what they said, but I won't. CX for subscribers later. Okay. So if you want to subscribe to Inner City Press, go do that. He's got some extra information that he puts there if you subscribe. Combs, Agnophilia. I have a few more mundane questions. David James, I love mundane questions. Where did you travel with Mr. Combs? David James, Ibiza, London, Saint-Tropez. Agnophilia, were these vacation? David James, business oriented. Agnophilia, what were you hired as? David James, personal liaison, but I was a personal assistant. Agnophilia, he met a high level roster people. Second understatement of the day. Why? He met with who's who. Agnophilia, it was important that he be prepared for these meetings. Yes. It was important that he be on time. David James, no. We exchanged meetings to fit his schedule all the time when he didn't want to show up at a certain time. Agnophilia, he had security because people wanted to touch him, right? Yes, in the airport, in McDonald's. Was he gracious? I don't think gracious is a word I'd use for Mr. Combs, for Sean Combs. Did he sign autographs? No. Agnophilia, you said he stayed in the studio until 3 or 4 a.m. and you'd stay with him. James, yes, it was common. Agnophilia, what sort of things would he want to always have with him? James, ketchup, for example. Did you know he put applesauce on cheeseburgers? David James, no, but I knew he liked applesauce. Agnophilia, he liked Astroglide condoms and baby oil, but you didn't expense it through the business. David James, usually not. David James, I was told that he didn't want to run them through the company. He didn't want a record of them. Interesting statement. I was told he didn't want to run them through the company. He didn't want a record of them. Agnophilia, when you bought the 8-ball of Coke on, all right, let's go back because I didn't mean to click. Yeah, this works better. When you bought the 8-ball of Coke on Saint-Tropez, you didn't tell Mr. Combs, did you? He was asleep. Tell me about your relationship with Roger Bonds. David James, we talked about Bad Boy as a family. What do you mean? David James, Mama Combs called me her son many times. Agnophilia, what was the mission? David James, make sure he's happy. Agnophilia, was it fun? I enjoyed it from time to time. What was your relationship with Chef Jordan? David James, professional. Agnophilia, did you choke her? David James, no. Prosecution, objection, then a sidebar. Interesting. I wonder why they would bring up the chef when we know that there was some kind of altercation between her and Puffy. Agnophilia, tell me what happened. David James, we were on Star Island. She told me where to take him. I grabbed her 2 wrists and said, stay in your effing lane. Hold on, y'all. Okay, so there's nothing extra on that. I don't know exactly, but we're going to read through his testimony and then go to CNN and see what they say. Was there fallout? It was reported to corporate HQ. Mr. Combs called me in. David James, Mr. Cole told me you can't be putting your hands on women. He told me to give her a gift. Combs, Agnophilia, what did you give her? David James, I rolled up a blunt and gave it to her. Did she like it? It appeared she did. So there was an altercation. So it wasn't Sean Combs? Agnophilia, were you in a car with Mr. Combs and who? Chris Lightley. Why is that name so familiar? Chris Lightly, Chris Lightly. Is Chris Lightly not here with us anymore? Because it seems like Chris Lightly, why do I want to believe that Chris Lightly was attached to Kim Porter? Who was Chris Lightly? Okay, yeah. Okay. He was a music manager. Oh, he managed Sean Diddy Combs. Gotcha. I knew that name because I knew he was no longer with us. Okay. All right. I knew that name sounded familiar. Let's continue. Have you taken ecstasy? David James, I'd party, sure. What were the things like in the studio? Drugs? Yes. It's a creative environment. David James, I didn't smoke when working with Mr. Combs, but he caught you smoking once. David James, I thought he was in for I guess for the night. I lit up. He came out. He says, what are you doing? I said nothing. David James, he said, if you're man enough to smoke, you're man enough to tell me. I said, okay, I'm smoking. He said, if I did it again, he'd fire me. Combs, Agnew, how about when you picked up the two prostitutes and had X with one? Objection, 403. Judge says overruled. She asked for 200. I called Bonds and asked what the hell. She asked to take a shower. I said that's 200. Laughter. Agnew on that note, no further questions. Redirect. What about the incident in Alpine, New Jersey? David James, to file a police report and say that Chef Jordan had been the aggressor, but I didn't file it. I drove around and told him I'd made the report. Prosecution. What have we to ask you to do? David James, tell the truth. Nothing further. Recross. Combs, you lied to Mr. Combs about filing the police report? David James, yes. Nothing further. Could we have a break? All right. So we're going to break, and so let's go to CNN to see what's going on. David James, an assistant for Sean Combs from 2007 to 2009, testified that he did not personally observe physical violence between Combs and Cassie Ventura, but heard them argue about her career more than once. In those arguments, she would express a desire to branch out more into modeling and acting, but Combs would tell her she had to focus on her music career, James testified. Remember, James worked for Combs during the early portions of Combs' relationship with Ventura. Ventura testified that she signed a contract with Combs' company, Bad Boy Records, in early 2006. The pair first began dating in 2007. James testified yesterday that Combs had several girlfriends while James worked for him. He described Kim Porter, who shared 3 children with Combs, as Combs' main girlfriend, and then listed 4 other women, including Ventura, who was his other girlfriend. So she was part of a whole concubine. And that's Mr. James. Oh. This is Mr. James right here. Combs confronted James over a blog post. Okay, remember we was reading about this particular blog post, so we're going to see some more information or fill in the blanks. David James, a former assistant to Diddy, testified that he was on the computer at Combs' home one night when Combs was out at a club with Cassie Ventura and another assistant and security. As soon as he entered the door, he beelined straight for me and pulled up the computer search history, James said. Combs told him that someone had written a blog post lying about him hitting Ventura, and he wanted to see if James had written it, the former assistant testified. James said he did not see Ventura that night, but 2 days later, Combs directed him to bring her food at a nearby hotel. When James brought the food to her hotel room, he was surprised to see a member of Combs' staff answering the door instead of Ventura's himself. She stayed at the hotel for about a week, he testified. So he brought food to the hotel. And I'm wondering, when was this? They didn't give a date. Did we say 2013, 2014? Interesting. David James, a former assistant for Sean, testified that he often set up hotel rooms for Combs. If Combs was staying in New York, his favorite hotel was the Trump International. James said that he would set up things for Combs before his arrival, including clothing, toiletry bag, a medicine bag, food, and drinks. He said he would organize a collection of about 40 products, mostly skincare, for Combs in the hotel room. The medicine bag typically carried between 25 and 30 pill bottles, which included ecstasy, Percocet, James said. Some bottles were unmarked, he added. Security would always carry Combs' Louis Vuitton bag, which held personal items and typically 10,000 and more in cash. James said that he would often replenish items for Combs during trips. If he was restocking food and drinks, James said he would pay for them and get reimbursed by Bad Boy Entertainment. When he restocked, quote, personal items such as baby oil, lubricant, and condoms, James said that he would ask security to be reimbursed from the cash in Combs' bag. When asked if Combs would stay alone when he traveled, he said no. I don't think Mr. Combs ever stayed alone. While he worked for Combs, James said typically Cassie would stay with Combs, but there were other women as well. James testified that occasionally Combs would ask him to bring certain items, usually an iPod or food, to his hotel room when he was staying there. He recounted an incident in Miami around 2008 when Combs asked him to bring an iPod to his hotel room. And I forget, he didn't work in 2013 or 2014, so he'd only understand and know what happened between 2007 and 2009. James said it took him about an hour to get there, and when he knocked on the door, nobody answered. He entered the room with his own key and saw Cassie lying on her back in the hotel room with a white comforter up to her neck. She did not move when I entered the room, he testified. Combs was in the shower, he said. James mentioned that he did not speak with Combs over and tour about the incident afterward because it wasn't his job to discuss personal affairs. He testified that he saw Combs take drugs and give them to his friend. On a couple occasions, James procured drugs for Combs and for Combs' friends. A person called One Stop often brought drugs to Combs, James said. James understood Combs often took Percocets while he was operating his business and preferred to take the ecstasy at night. On a trip with Combs to Saint-Tropez, a friend of Combs texted James asking him to get cocaine, he testified. James said he arranged for the cocaine for Combs' friend, but said Combs did not ask him to do it. He said he assumed he had to. On another occasion during a party in Los Angeles, James recalled how Combs sent him back to the house to get ecstasy for a friend. James said he went back to Combs' house to get the ecstasy from Combs' medicine bag and brought it back to the party. James testified about an incident with one of Combs' Cartier bracelets going missing, prompting his security to search through all of his and then his girlfriend's belongings. James said he felt like he couldn't refuse the search. On two other occasions when Combs' possession went missing, James had to take a lie detector test administered by a man who claimed to have formerly worked with the FBI, he testified. He claimed that it was very intimidating on both occasions, and James' results showed no discrepancy. James said one of Combs' security agents told him that another former employee, Capricorn Clark, also had to take a lie detector test previously. And remember, I told you, oh, this is a front shot of him. And then we go into cross. He testifies about the Suge Knight, and I'm just going to go briefly through there if he said anything different. All right, so when he got there, David James testified about an occasion he went with Combs' security to a diner to get food for Combs and the staff. When they got there, the security guard saw Combs' rival, Suge Knight, and approached him. They talked briefly before the guard and James went inside to order. When they got back to Combs' house, Combs and Ventura were outside arguing. Ventura looked like she had been crying. Combs then ordered James to drive him and the security guard back to the diner to look for Knight. Combs sat in the back seat with 3 handguns in his lap. Knight was gone by the time they got back to the restaurant. James said he was shook up by the incident. It was the first time he felt like he was in danger as Combs' assistant. James said he gave his note soon after the incident, offering to stay with Combs for 6 more months to train a replacement. He left Combs' company at May 2009. The defense attorney referenced documents from David James' meeting with the government, highlighting one where his account of the Mel's Diner event ended before he returned to Combs' home. He said that the government had instructed him not to say anything that could incriminate himself. Interesting. The document also indicated at one point he told them some of the events took place inside the diner, even though he testified today that they occurred outside the diner. I think that these are inaccurate notes, James said. He maintained that his recollection of the majority of the event remained consistent. Agnifil asked James whether he spoke up at any point when Combs was allegedly telling him to get back into the car. James said, "Respectfully, sir, you have someone with 3 guns in this close proximity. I didn't think I had the option to say anything." The defense also grilled James about his conversations with prosecutors Tuesday morning before he took the stand, asking if James was prepped on how to handle the Mel Diner incident. James said that they mentioned Agnifil's style, garnering laughs in the courtroom. "How'd I do?" Agnifil laughed. "Consistent," James said. He was asked if he was granted immunity for his testimony. James said he wasn't sure the details that were brokered by his attorney, but he believed he signed a proffer agreement, a type of agreement that gives a person some protection from prosecution. His assistant, Mr. James, testified that before he began working for Combs, he was a fan of Sean Combs' clothing line. James said he knew Combs would be a successful, self-made businessman who was a brilliant marketer. "I just respect Mr. Combs from a business perspective." Let's see. Let's get back to reading. A 1,000 bottles of bee honey. Let's see. Let's get back to where we were. They took a break. Jurors, I'm going to try to get the temperature turned up in here. I'm told it is complicated, but I'm freezing right along with you. The government calls Regina Ventura. Okay. So let's go back through CNN and get through to So basically, they were saying here that his personal life and his business life kind of blended together. He says even on vacation that they were working. So the defense was grilling him, saying that, "Hey, you left D-Rock at the diner." James said that he did not, and it didn't make any sense for him to leave him there with Suge Knight wielding a gun. And then again, he talks about him not being as gracious. Talked about going into a second car. They were there in a silver car, and then they went back in a black car. And so let me just read this to what a legal expert says the importance of David James's testimony. It says here, he's an important witness because he takes you into the enterprise. Remember about the overall charges you're looking at with RICO, continued Jackson. RICO is used to describe 35 offenses, including kidnapping, murder, bribery, arson, and extortion. Prosecutors have said Combs ran a criminal racketeering enterprise in which he and some in his inner circle coerced women into participating in drug-fueled sex performance he called freak-offs. Now, remember, And I think this is where a lot of people are having a hard time about uh, the freak offs, because from what was testified from Cassie and what was testified from the escorts, this was something that was between Diddy and Cassie. Now, we have not heard from the two other victims. We don't know if they participated in the freak offs or not, because we're not there yet. So what prosecutors are doing is getting to this bad behavior, not just to dirty Diddy up, which they're doing effectively, Jackson said, but also to get you to that RICO issue. This was a bad guy running a criminal enterprise. They're talking about his conversation, his first conversation with Cassie. And they're saying that that means coercion. That, remember when she said, man, this lifestyle is crazy. He says, you should get out. And she says, I can't get out. The government's theory is that she had no real choice but to do what she was doing. That was what they're saying. The defense obviously vehemently objects to this, which is cool. They're also talking about the demanding work conditions. Now, this is interesting because the assistant, he's the assistant that testified that he worked about 20 hours a day with him. Sometimes he worked like 3 weeks straight with no breaks at 20 hours a week. So that only leaves you with 4 hours to sleep, give and take, if you're taking a nap in between all of this time. Now, mind you, I don't know if he was steady moving all the time, but a 20-hour-a-day work week is wild. I can see you work 20 hours one day and then you're off a couple of days and you work 20 hours another day, but 20 hours a work week every day is wild. You know, and even if you own your own business, because I know a lot of people saying, well, you don't own your own business, you don't know what we work. Even owning your own business and working 20 hours a day is wild. Your body needs sleep. And I know a lot of you'll say, you can't do that. You can operate on 4 hours a week. Yeah, but then you don't understand why you're coughing all the time. You don't understand why your nose is running. You don't understand why your brain is foggy. You don't understand how you're not feeling good. Your head's hurting. You're tired. Interesting, they talked about the fact that he did not want a record of him buying certain things. He didn't want it put on company money. But here's the thing, and this is why I said it was interesting that he said that Mr. James would pay for it, because he would carry $10,000 of cash with him. I don't understand why, if he sent him to go to the store, there should have been a period where you would have given him a certain amount of money a week and say, this is the money for the stuff that's for Mr. Combs. And therefore, when you spend this money, make sure you bring a receipt, and money that you don't spend, you bring that joker back. But he would use his card and stuff like that. That's why I was saying, wow, that's interesting. And so now we understand that Sean Combs loved him some applesauce. James testified that there was a camaraderie among Sean Combs' staff, and they would often say Combs' record label, Bad Boy Records, was a family. Mama Combs called me son at one point, yada, yada, yada. So he said he didn't tell them that tell Combs that he had procured cocaine for him for one of his friends, because again, it was testified that One Stop was the person that would get the drugs or have the drugs for them. But he said that in certain places, or well, particularly because One Stop wouldn't be in San Tropez, but he had procured some cocaine for a friend that asked for it. But for me, that's telling, because that lets me know that the people who knew Diddy knew that his assistants would get him everything. Now, this is what I wanted to go over. Combs confronted James about assistant's altercation with Chef. During the cross-examination of David James, the former assistant to Sean Diddy Combs talked of a time he was in an altercation with one of Combs' chef, and about how Combs confronted him about it. James acknowledged that he got into an altercation with one of Combs' then chefs, a woman at Combs Star Island in Florida. James testified that he grew upset when the chef tried to tell him where Combs needed to be. James said that he grabbed her two wrists and squeezed her wrists and told her to stay in her lane. And you remember that language, because yesterday he was told that by one of the security guards. I don't know if it was Paulie or if it was D-Rock, about staying in his lane. The altercation was reported to Human Resources at Bad Boy Entertainment and eventually made it back to Combs, who confronted James, the ex-assistant. When Combs told him what happened, Combs told James, "You can't be putting your hands on women," and warned that he'd have to fire James if it happened again. Combs told him to write the chef a note, get her a gift, James said. James did so, and she eventually forgave him, he testified. On cross, they went back to say about overheard Sean Diddy Combs tell business associates that Cassie was moldable. James said this conference occurred very early on in Combs and Virginia's relationship. He said that Kim Porter, the mother of his several children, had recently moved to LA and Combs had been spending more time there. Because you remember, if I'm remembering correctly, and remember that this is from my memory, this is not a statement of fact, this is just what I remember. I remember that Kim was pregnant with the girls, the twins. And we found out later that when she had the twins, then another woman had another baby for him. And I think that was a final straw for Kim. So Kim moved to California. And you remember Diddy was still living in New York, if I understand it. I'm not telling you that he didn't have places in Los Angeles. But then I remember that there was this big push that he was going to move to, because I think the woman that had the other baby, I think she lived down in Atlanta somewhere. And so I think Kim moved to California. And wasn't Kim in a relationship with somebody? And then that somebody passed away? Hold on, y'all. I can't tell you because I was trying to see if it, but I remember there was somebody that Kim Porter was in a relationship with, and there was some type of altercation or something like that. And then later on, whoever this person was, uh, he passed away. Let's continue. On redirect, James testified that Combs once asked him to falsely report to the police about an altercation between Combs and the music mogul's then chef in Combs in Alpine, New Jersey. Combs instructed me to say that she, the chef, was the aggressor and hit him first. James said he did not want to make a false report to the police, so he drove around New Jersey for a while. When he eventually returned to the house, he told Combs he made the report. This is the same chef, a woman, that James had testified he himself had been in an altercation with in Florida. So both of them were in the altercation with the chef. He gives them advice and then he turns around and doesn't take it. All right. So now we are at the time that we are going to be with Cassie's mother. Ooh, child. Let's see what Cassie's mother got to say. Prosecution. Where do you live? Regina Ventura. New London, Connecticut. Prosecution. How many children do you have? Miss Ventura. 2. Roderick and Cassandra. Prosecution. Who is this? Miss Ventura. Sean Combs. He dated my daughter. Prosecution. When did you meet Sean Combs? In 2006, my daughter signed with his Bad Boy Records. He was her boss. Then they started dating. They moved to LA. Prosecution. Read this message from December 2011. Cassandra wrote to me. She said that Sean Combs threatened to release a sex tape and go after her and Mr. Mescuti. That's Kid Cudi. Prosecution. How did you react? Miss Ventura. It made me sick. Sean Combs demanded $20,000. He said to recoup losses due to Mr. Mescuti from my husband and myself. Prosecution. Why did you take a loan to pay Mr. Sean Combs? Miss Ventura. For the safety of my daughter. Prosecution. Look in the binder next to you. Miss Ventura. These are the photos I took of my daughter's bruises from Sean Combs. Prosecution. Do you know Mia? Miss Ventura. She was an employee of Sean Combs. What happened? Miss Ventura. We were in his kitchen laughing. Sean asked her why she was laughing. She stopped and looked plain. Prosecution. Now to August 2016. We're done with the binder. Prosecution. While in LA, did you call the police? Miss Ventura. Yes. Sean Combs stole Cassandra's phone. They had a bitter argument outside of her apartment building. She lived on the 17th floor. They argued at the roundabout. Who else was there? Miss Ventura. D-Rock. Prosecution. Is Damian Butler his government name? Miss Ventura. He was standing between us. I tried to hit him. Sean Combs took Cassandra's car, a Jaguar. Prosecution. No further questions. Judge Cross. Defense. No questions. So they didn't even ask her no questions, huh? That was quick. Next witness. All right. That was that. Okay. We'll see what CNN says because that was short and sweet, wasn't it? Next witness. Prosecution. The government calls Mr. Sheree Hayes. They ask him, where are you from? Hayes. Harlem, New York. What was your work? Sheree Hayes. Male exotic dancer. I was known as the Punisher. Now this is the second escort this is an exotic dancer. The other one was an escort. This one is an exotic dancer. Let's continue. Do you recognize these two? Mr. Hayes. I do. Mr. Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura. I was hired in 2012 to create a sexy, erotic scene for them. These photos show, okay? Prosecution. Why were you called the Punisher? Sheree Hayes. Playing basketball on West 4th Street. The woman who called you, what time did she book you for? Midnight at Trump Tower, Central Park West. Strip tease for a small group of friends. And that seems like Cassie's MO when she's setting up the freak offs, that she calls the people when they were calling the escort services for a strip tease. And then once they figured out that they liked this particular person, then they would book that person directly, as I recall. Prosecution. When you get there, how did Miss Ventura appear? In a bathroom with nothing underneath and a wig. I was expecting a crowd, but there was no one else. She told me she and her husband wanted to create a sexual scene with baby oil. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That darn baby oil. That darn baby oil. Because a person, it usually takes a person, even if you use baby oil every day, it usually takes you anywhere from 3 months to use up a bottle of baby oil, because baby oil is, it slides and slips, it gets you all greased up. But I am just perplexed how much baby oil they use. Prosecution. What did she hand to you, Mr. Hayes? $800. Prosecution. How was the room? Mr. Hayes. Dimly lit, electric candles, bowls of water with bottles of baby oil in them. She told me not to acknowledge her husband and not to look at him when he came out. Did he come out? Yes. He was naked, but I could not see his face. It was like what a Muslim woman wears. You see only the eyes. He had a bottle of Astroglide. How did you recognize it? I use it. The purpose. Baby, I don't know. I know that there are people who can market anything. I would be curious to see or to hear how people are going to market Astroglide and baby oil. I'm just saying, I am so interested to know how you all would market Astroglide and baby oil. Woo, child. Let me scoot over a little bit. Over, and then I can get. Let me see. Figure out what I did over here. Yeah, let's get over here. All right, let's see. How did it end? She went in the other room with him. When she came back, she asked if I wanted to finish. I said no. If they were happy, I was happy. She gave me the money. Did you do it again, Mr. Hayes? Yes, 8 or 12 times. Looks like the Punisher was serious. Looked like the Punisher was on point. Mr. Hayes, how did you end up recognizing her? I was a fan of Mr. Combs and followed him on Instagram. I saw her on it. Prosecution. That would be a good place to break. Judge, break. So they must have gone to lunch. And they're back. Prosecution. Talking still to Mr. Hayes. How was the session scheduled? Mr. Hayes. I'd be reached out to at 5 or 7 p.m. for later. They asked for a sexy scene, but I knew it would be more. Prosecution. How would it start? Mr. Hayes. Baby oil. A sexy atmosphere. Mr. Combs would direct. How did the direction work? Hayes. Mr. Combs might say, sit forward, move the camera, or what would happen sexually. One time during sex, he dropped a stack of money. He said, I like this S. So in other words, he was a great performer. Not funny, ha ha. Funny like, dag, all this going on. How much baby oil did you use? Now, see, these are the important questions. These are the important questions. Sheree Hayes, a lot. We were supposed to be glistening as much as possible. How long would they last? Hayes, 4 hours, a lot of waiting, maybe 40 minutes or so. I was supposed to finish in a specific spot. Then what? She would leave with Mr. Combs 10 or 15 minutes. She'd return in a bathrobe and pay me $2,000 or $1,200 cash. Did you think Miss Ventura was enjoying herself? And then there was an objection, and then he was sustained. So he couldn't answer the question. Prosecution, did you use one? I'm not a marijuana smoker, but I did pull a Bill Clinton. I was handed a not a Bill Clinton. I was so that means he didn't inhale. So if you're not familiar with the Bill Clinton, when Bill Clinton was running for president, they had found out that he had smoked marijuana, and so he was like, well, yeah, I had the joint, but I didn't inhale. So in other words, he didn't get high because he didn't inhale the marijuana, and that has always been a running joke around parts. But you almost had to be there. Did you have performance issues? Having the woman's partner there, yes. Did the issues affect your pay? Objection. Overruled. Sheree Hayes. I wasn't sure how they calculated. One time, Mr. Combs threw condoms on the couch next to us. I struggled. It was a failure. What happened? They went out. I finished. She came back and thanked me for privacy. Oh, he didn't get no money for that night. What do you think would happen next? I was worried I would not be used again. I hadn't done my job. He has said, I want to see you F her, and I couldn't. Are you writing a book? Mr. Hayes, yes. Self-help about my ED. It's advice. Oh, he has ED, erectile dysfunction. In your book, do you write about your time with Mr. Combs and Miss Ventura? Hayes, yes. I call them a married, wealthy couple. How long is it? 6 pages out of 186. I sensationalize it. I want it to be enjoyable, highs and lows. Prosecution, no further question. Mr. Donaldson, he says, I'll try to make this as harmless as possible. Congratulations on your book. What is it called? Mr. Hay, In Search of Freezer Meat. What's harder than that? This man gonna say good title. That's an awful title. Don't pump. Change that title, Mr. Hayes. Absolutely not. So, Donaldson, do you have a website? He says yes. Now I'm a co-owner. All the male dancers are independent contractors. Donaldson, have you been doing this for 25 years? Mr. Hayes, 30 years, coming up on a big anniversary. Mr. Donaldson, you dance with them? Hayes, a professional dry hump. For 30 years, thousands of ladies, you try not to develop feelings for them, right? You try not to. It's a job. Donaldson, but you talk to Cassie cordially. Cordial. Donaldson, she asked to be able to call you. Hayes, just to set the sessions up. We were never asked to talk. So again, she would hire them through the escort. And then once they agreed they liked what was going on, then they would get their numbers, get the escort's number, and hire them directly. Donaldson, you had feelings for her? Hayes, incorrect. Donaldson, but you thought she was only doing this with you? Hayes, that is correct. She said it was a special occasion. Did you develop feelings for her? That is not correct. Donaldson, you told the government notes say you developed feelings for her. That may have been taken out of context. You used your 25 years experience. This was a different scene. I usually aim for humor. Donaldson, you wouldn't try to dry hump someone who didn't want to be dry humped, correct? Hayes, yes, it's important to read the room. So you read the room with Cassie and she wanted objection, sustained. Donaldson, was Mr. Combs' request that you penetrate? Mr. Hayes, it was a demand, a strong suggestion. Donaldson, Cassie paid you even when she canceled, right? Yes, $500. Donaldson, Mr. Hayes, I wish you success with your book. Mr. Hayes, thank you. Redirect. What made you think Miss Ventura was enjoying herself? Hayes, it was the first time unprotected. Without the details? Objection. So this is him on the stand. Prosecution, no further questions. Anything, Mr. Donaldson? What do you mean by steamy? I felt it was enjoyable for Miss Ventura and Mr. Combs. And so he's showing us some of the sketches. Next government witness. So today was a day that they moved through David James, Miss Ventura, Mr. Hayes, and now they're on to Special Agent Gerard Gannon. So this was a very productive day. Let's continue. So let's go back. Let's go to CNN. So this, okay, I'm sorry, y'all don't see what I see. So this lady right here, this is Cassie's mother. She's a pretty woman. Let's see what happened. That's David. Cassie. Mr. James. So here she is. I just wanted to make it bigger. This is Cassie's mother. She's a pretty woman and stylish too. And that right there, I believe, is Cassie's father. This is a mother and this is the father. All right. Prosecutor asked Miss Victoria to identify Sean Combs, and she said he dated her daughter. She said she first met Mr. Combs in 2006 when her daughter signed the record deal. She said Miss Victoria said when her daughter and Combs started dating in New York City, she'd see her daughter about 3 or 4 times a year. When Cassie moved to California, she said she saw her less frequently, usually around the holidays. It was harder to get to her. So they're using her daughter to do the coercion part. Let's get to some more testimony. Cassie Ventura emailed mom about Combs' sex tape threat. Oops. And so she did testify that, she threatened, and there was $20,000 that was supposed to go to him, and he took the $20,000, and then he returned it to her. Miss Ventura, the mother of Cassie Ventura, said Combs contacted her around the same time Cassie told her Combs threatened to release the tape, the video. Miss Ventura said that Combs told her he needed $20,000 to recoup the money he said he had spent on Cassie Ventura. She and her husband took out a home equity loan to obtain the $20,000. And to me, that is so despicable. You are sitting around here as a man who has made hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, and you are literally harassing working class people for $20,000 doggone dollars. You ought to be shamed, but you're not. She was bruised, and I wanted to make sure that we memorialized it, Miss Ventura said. Miss Ventura said her daughter told her at the time she was being beaten by Combs. These photos were first admitted into evidence during Cassie's testimony. She says she visited, now this is the LA incident, in 2016 for her daughter's 30th birthday. She and Combs got into a bitter argument outside of Cassie's apartment building after Combs stole Cassie's phone. Miss Ventura says she called the police. We were arguing about the phone. I wanted the phone back and he was holding it, she said. One of Combs' security guards was standing between them. She said, I was yelling and screaming and trying to hit him, she said, but said that she was not able to hit him. She said Combs eventually gave her the phone, but then took Cassie's car. So her testimony finishes without cross-examination. We talked to Sheree Hayes, went over the exotic dancer, and we find out his name is the Punisher. And he testified how many times. So it looks like he was their dancer in New York. I don't see where it says that he went outside of New York. Let's see. And he talked about his experiences. He talked about how he recognized her. Okay, so this is a picture of Mr. Hayes. And then they went to lunch. Oh, they asked you questions about the Diddy trial. I'm not submitting no questions. So this is just a recap of what happened with lunch. They're back. So it looks like he just met with them in New York. And then he talked about the way that the freak off went with him. A sexy scene. And he kept emphasizing that Mr. Combs was directing the whole scene. Mr. Hayes says he never used drugs with Cassie Ventura and Sean Diddy Combs. They sometimes offered him alcohol and marijuana, he said. Hayes said he also never saw Combs take drugs, and Combs never appeared to be intoxicated during their encounters. Hayes went on to describe the discomfort of a scenario with the woman's partner present. He said he tried taking medication to help his performance. Hayes said his last session with Ventura was in 2016. He said he failed to perform and was never called back. Before he left, Ventura praised Hayes and thanked him for being private and respecting their privacy. That's a sketch of Mr. Hayes. Escort said he never considered Ventura to be a personal friend, and we went over that. This is interesting because we didn't see this. Under cross-examination from the defense, male escort Sheree Hayes says, when asked if Cassie Ventura ever appeared uncomfortable during their hotel encounters, I didn't get any cues that there was discomfort with what was going on. It seems as if it was consented as far as I was concerned. Hayes said that as an experienced dancer, he would read the room. He knew how to read the room. He testified that he never saw any violence. And so now we're getting into Mr. Gannon. So let's go ahead and read the information from Mr. Gannon. All right. The government calls Special Agent Gerard Gannon. They asked where did he work. He said Homeland Security in Miami in the National Security Group. In March 2024, the human trafficking group in Miami. What time did the search begin? After 3 p.m. Why so late? We learned Mr. Combs and his family were flying out of the country. Was there a pier on the property on Star Island? Yes, we had to monitor it. They show 2 photos of Star Island show. Prosecution. Why did you have to break open the gate? Gannon. To make sure bad actors wouldn't have time to put those who would search in danger. Prosecution. What is this a photo of? Mr. Gannon. The pool at the pier. After review of 2 Star Island floor plans. Prosecution. What did you find there? Mr. Gannon. Parts of an AR-15 rifle, X-Toys, and Astroglide. Photos of guns shown to jury. Mr. Gannon. These magazines were loaded with bullets. Prosecution. What do these show? Mr. Gannon. The serial numbers had been cut out. Puffy. Why do you have guns with serial numbers removed? I've never known you to be a felon or anything like that. Let's turn to two more exhibits. What are these, Agent Gannon? The ammunition we found. Prosecution. And these platform heels, how high are they? Gannon, 7 inches. Wearing 7-inch heels. Prosecution. This may be a good place to break for the day. Judge, break for the day. So it doesn't, let me make sure. So it looks like that's the end of the testimony. All right, that's the end of the testimony. This was a productive day. We've had all of these witnesses. So let's kind of go over, let's go back to CNN. And he just, again, this is some pictures. Is this of Star Island? Yeah, this is a picture of them at Star Island. So he testified that he broke the gate. So we don't really need to go over all of that. All right. So this was a productive day. So we finished the testimony from David James, and he basically talked about all the things that he got into with Diddy, about being his personal assistant, procuring all these things for him, including drugs. He also said that some of the drugs were in his name, prescriptions were written in his name, and he also went and got those drugs, particularly like Percocets and things like that. He also talked about that everyone was considered to be family in this business, which leads to there's an enterprise and there's a connection. He also talked about some of the bad behavior, including his bad behavior. He talked about how he had attacked the chef, Jordan, so that he had put her hands and said that, I can't remember the phrase, but the phrase was said to him early yesterday, and it'll come back to me in a minute. But he talked about that. He talked about how when things got missing, that everyone was searched. Everyone had to be searched. There was no one to be saved. He also corroborated the incident when Diddy went out to, I guess, to confront Suge Knight. He talked about that particular incident, and they talked about the guns and things and stuff like that. So they're building this picture of Diddy. They're building this picture of him. He wasn't just a mogul that was sitting behind his desk, that he was hands-on when there were some things that he wanted to have done. So then we get Regina Ventura on the line. And she talks about the time that when I guess Puffy and her daughter Cassie were on a break, and then she started dating Kid Cudi. He coerced the parents, or he told them that they owe him $20,000 for the money that he had put down into it for what he put into their daughter, because she was dating Kid Cudi. These people went to their bank to put out a loan to pay this man back. And then he ultimately sent the money back to them. She talked about how she witnessed when Cassie moved to Los Angeles with Diddy, how she witnessed them were fighting, that he took her phone. He wouldn't give the phone. She was whipping and hollering and trying to get at him to get the phone. The bodyguard was coming between her and Diddy. He said Diddy ended up giving the phone back, but took the car. And then we finished off. We didn't finish there. We go into another escort. He was hired. He was known as the Punisher. He was hired to do the scenes, the intimate scenes with Cassie and Diddy. The same type of setup. At first when he comes in, Diddy had something covering over his face. He said it looked like what the Muslims women wear. You know what, Sam? You are cutting up in here. Ooh, you were cutting up in here. And so I guess again, they were trying to show that they did expert, but I guess what I needed from this particular uh 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 exotic dancer was that he went other places with them besides New York. Because I'm not seeing that, again, I don't have the testimony, but I'm not seeing where they asked him any questions like, did you go to different places? And I didn't see that in the CNN thing. So I don't see that. Also, I guess because my mind likes order. I like for you to go in some kind of order. To me, they're kind of bouncing around. Now, me being, if I was a person on the jury, all this bouncing around would be confusing. I guess I'd have to make like a table, like law enforcement, uh, witness, and then kind of try to break them into categories. Me, I'd have to break these people into categories because I'm trying to figure out, they're bouncing around all these particular charges and things like that. So, and then we get to the special agent who went on to describe what he found and what was going on in the compound in Miami. So he's probably going to be back on the stand tomorrow, and we're definitely going to go back and we're going to review this. So we did pretty good. This was an hour and a half. So I don't want to play this because I don't want this broadcast to be deemed. All right, people. We do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Y'all, we're going to be here. Let's see today. I'm going to shoot for 1:30, 2:30 at the latest. I have to figure out what my timetable is going to be. I'll put the thumbnail up and everything like that so you know that when I'll come back, because I think I'm going to be otherwise deposed tomorrow. So yeah. I'll let you know on my community page on YouTube. But if I put up the thumbnail, I'm gonna be here. If I don't, I'll let you know on the community page. Because if anything, I'll just have to review both of the testimonies tomorrow, and it took an hour and a half to review the testimony today, so it may take another hour and a half. I may go early just to review that, tomorrow's testimony and then Thursday's testimony. All right, people, we do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Y'all put it down in the comments. What are y'all thinking about today's testimony? I mean, it wasn't, and I will tell you all this. This is what I'm going to leave you all with. We probably will have more days like this where you're not going to find anything exciting. It's not going to be like Matlock. It's not going to be like Perry Mason, and it's not going to be like an episode of Law and Order. Usually, if you're like me and you have watched these trials and you enjoy watching these trials, there's just days where you're just flooded with information and you're trying to bounce in your head what was the importance of the information. And this is different for me because usually I'm able to watch the people who are testifying, but because this is federal court, we're not going to be able to do this. So this, all I can tell you, what the prosecution is doing is, there is a puzzle, and they're trying to build this puzzle piece by piece. They know in this puzzle that they want to show the trafficking, they want to show the elements of the RICO, and they want to show the transportation. I think from talking with the escorts and the exotic dancers, I think that they have proven that these people have the transportation and things like that. I think that they have proved that. It's been corroborated. I don't know too much about the trafficking yet because I'm just not sure about that particular charge. And with the RICO charge, so let me go back really quickly. So I want you all to keep in mind of what the charge is as far as that RICO charge. They're trying to show at least 2 of these charges: kidnapping, arson, bribery, obstruction of justice, forced labor, trafficking, the transporting for the prostitute, and the drug trafficking. So these are the charges that they're trying to prove. I will tell you, I think they got the bribery. I think they got the bribery. And I think they got the transporting. So we should hear more about this arson charge, because we do know that Kid Cudi's car was blown up. And so we're going to see what they have in regards to that. I don't know about this part right here, the trafficking, but we'll see. All right, people, we do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Y'all, please tell a friend, tell a kin, tell a coworker, tell that heifer that you can't stand that I'm over here making these videos. And as always, people, bye-bye.